Hey everyone, good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you guys are having a great Friday morning. It is Friday, thank goodness. Got the weekend coming up here. Just got to find the link to turn off the music here. Hold on. Turn that off. So I do get this this nice little pretzel app is good. This pretzel.rocks. They offer free music. It's the royalty free stuff, and that's kind of important. I kind of need to know that stuff. I gotta keep it royalty free so I don't get dinged on YouTube, right? So hey everybody, this is your opportunity to come and ask me questions. It is a live call-in show. You guys can use the Google Hangouts link to join us. And so far I don't see anybody on, which is kind of disappointing. I was hoping to get a few people here. Maybe the link doesn't work. We got anybody? Hello? Hello? No? Oh, darn it. Well, that's okay. I got a few things that I could talk about this morning if you guys don't really have your own questions or don't really have your own things you want to talk about. I, of course, usually do, right? I got to have something on hand just in case you guys decide, no, it's Friday morning. I don't want to wake up that early. I don't blame you. So, okay. I do have a couple articles that I found that are talking about software development. And gosh, I got to be honest with you. I've been doing this 737 Max discussion, talking about having better plans for managing our development process and making sure that we properly go through and build our applications with some pretty, we need to set our own standards. We got to have our own set of rules to go by. Now, I think that obviously can be different for different industries. So we're really talking about the airline industry, and that one in particular has been fairly bad. Oh, that reminds me, I should probably see if I can pull up that one article that we talked about last time. That was the SAA Consulting gave us. Let me see if I can go find that link. Bear with me here. I know dead air is always a problem. I hate giving dead air. Let's see. I think it was, what is imposter syndrome? Was that it? No. It was the, was I wrong about the 737 Max? And this is always one of those conversations that, boy, I get a lot of pushback on this, and that's understandable. A lot of people don't, they probably feel uncomfortable about, oops, that's not the one I want to go. They kind of feel uncomfortable talking about something that's kind of jeopardizing our industry. It's understandable that people might not want to really dive into it and have these deep, meaningful conversations about our industry. 5 comments, sort by. I don't, why am I filtered? I can't see all the comments. That's concerning. There we go. Let me pull this up here. And I got to sign in. I did create an account here. Hold on here. I apologize. I should have been more prepared for this, but I didn't actually expect to talk about this right off the bat. Go to site. Yes. Sign in. And let's see if we can get that link working. Come on. Here, I'll show you guys what's going on here. Let me share my screen. Boy, this must be like one of the most boring broadcasts you've ever watched. Steve is just talking about what he's doing on his computer, not even bothering to show us. Oh, okay. You're being real stingy with me here today. Let's try this. Go to my channel and videos. And it was the one where was I wrong about the 737 Max? And you can see it's not one of my more popular videos, right? It's only 6 thumbs up, 1 thumbs down. Okay, so this is concerning. I don't know why I can't see all of the comments right off the bat, but there it is. Okay, so there's the link that we're looking for. Aha. So this is an incredibly well detailed article about what what I from a developer's perspective, what's going on with the airline industry, more specifically with Boeing, and how development is a part of it. And he goes in and does a pretty good job of detailing exactly what the problem is. It has to a lot to do with the engine size being larger, and so the clearance below the engine to the tarmac or to the ground is much, much thinner. There's not as much clearance there. So what the in fact, they're trying to make the engines even larger, and they wanted to retrofit those onto the wing. So what they had to do was the position of the engine had to be shifted forward. And kind of hard to see in the diagram here, but if you look carefully, the position of where the engine is actually further forward. And that's a bit of a problem because now you've changed the aerodynamics of the plane. And in fact, where the launch, or I should say, where the thrust is being applied to the plane, it may seem like, oh, well, that's just on the edge of the tip of the wing, right? It's still being fixed to the same spot, but actually, it moves. You're changing the center of gravity of the plane, and you're changing where exactly the force on the engine is increasing, which kind of creates this extra bit of lift. It kind of forces the nose up a little bit. And he goes through in this article and kind of describes it as like when you stick your hand out the window of the car, how the air causes your your hand to want to try to fly up, and at a certain point, everything starts to stall. So, but he goes into pretty substantial detail about how what ended up happening was, in order to compensate for this shift in the dynamics of the plane, the MCAS system had to be equipped with a way. Well, they created this MCAS system in order to help pilots compensate for this new flight performance. And then one of the things that they didn't do was, and here's their angle of attack experiments and stuff. One of the things that they did not do was take the co-pilot and the pilot sensors and do any sort of cross-reference. So when one of the sensors went out, say the whichever one was essentially flying the plane, because the way that they have it, only one set of controls is actually flying the plane at a single time. Either the pilot controls are piloting the plane, or the co-pilot controls are flying the plane. And whichever one is currently active is the one that is pulling the sensor data from. Okay. And once that sensor goes wonky, it just caused the plane to immediately say, okay, we're in a stall. We need to point the nose forward so that we increase airspeed. Or we need to compensate for the pitch it's assumed that we're in too high of a pitch and it needs to compensate because the device, the sensor, is incorrectly identifying that the nose of the airplane is going too steep and it will cause a stall. So it automatically tries to override any pilot control. So it overrides any sort of input that the pilot can give. There's no way for the pilot to override whatever the plane is trying to do. All that they can do is actually shut off the MCAS entirely. They have to turn it completely off in order for it to work. And one of the other things that was kind of a design flaw from a developer's perspective was they did not do any cross-referencing of the pilot side, instruments and sensors with the co-pilot instrument and sensors. So there was no cross-reference. It was just simply, if this sensor says X, Y, Z, then we're pointing the nose down. And there was no double check of that. That's according to what He's talking about what he's describing about the MCAS system. So those lines of code were no doubt created by people at the direction of managers. And this is what my point has been also. These lines of code, the direction that the software developers are being told is really just what the managers are dictating what needs to happen. And that's not necessarily low enough level. Like the developers are not close enough to that system to understand what the real challenges that the pilots might face are. Right? If you have a management team telling you this needs to be implemented, and the developers are just going to implement what their managers tell them. And at some point, there kind of becomes this wall, this extra layer of red tape, or not really red tape, but more just like an extra layer of non-discussion, non-cross-talk between the developers and the pilots who will actually be flying these things to determine whether or not this is okay. And one of the things that he also describes is how he has a Cessna, which is it is the most widely used plane out there, especially for civilian aircraft. And he has a very similar system, an update to his computer that kind of does something similarly, but it can be overridden by the pilot. The pilot can, it'll automatically try to change the controls, but he can, with enough force, and it's not too much, but with enough force, he can essentially override whatever the computer's trying to do to the plane. So if he sees something is wildly inaccurate that the computer's trying to do, he can still compensate for that and cause the plane to get into good position. So, yeah, there's a lot of really detailed and good stuff in here. And I really, again, want to thank SAA Consulting for putting this link out there. You do have to sign up for IEEE Spectrum in order to read it. It is behind not a paywall, but a login wall, registration wall. But it is just a really well detailed, well explained from the perspective of what was happening in Boeing. What is the MCAS system? What was the challenge that it was trying to fix? How did the software developers implement MCAS software? What the challenges were as far as getting the development off the ground to do this, and how are the pilots affected by this? Also, some of the material that Boeing released with the 737 Max doesn't really detail exactly what the MCAS is and what it's doing. And so not every pilot is getting properly trained on it. And therefore, you can imagine that if you have an MCAS system that automatically overrides any pilot input, and the only way to fix that is to completely turn the system off, and you don't really have any details about that in the manual, or you don't make a big emphasis of it, then, things are going to happen like this. Now, again, I want to restate and I want to reiterate that when it comes to this thing, I don't believe anybody did anything malicious, and I hesitate to even think that somebody did anything negligent that would be categorized as negligent. Obviously, that would be for a judge or peers to decide, but I don't think that anybody did anything here that was truly negligent of their job, right? Nobody did something and just kind of ignored the problem, right? Nobody tried to just say, that's not a thing, I'm not going to worry about it. It was really more just a process of insufficient communication between the people who were actually actively involved in trying to build the aircraft and fly the aircraft, right? Like, what is the experience going to be? And in fact, the FAA didn't stop this, right? The FAA didn't, and there's actually more details about this in the article as well, that the FAA kind of, they outsourced, I guess you could say, the safety mechanisms or the safety protocols that they would typically have, and instead outsource them to the companies themselves. So they're kind of self-regulating in a way. And before you start saying, well, that's terrible, yeah, I mean, it can lead to disasters like this, because what you do have is a situation where those people who are trying to where the people who are trying to figure out if there's a problem with the system, right? They have their bosses now is basically Boeing. And it's hard to go to Boeing, and if Boeing management and team is saying, "We really gotta get this thing in place. Can you just push it through? Can you just deliver it for us? Can you just say it's okay?" Because, they really wanna get they've got the 737, which is a really old plane, and they're retrofitting it with these new systems to try to make it more, more modern. But they don't wanna completely redesign the airframe. They don't wanna completely redesign a plane to facilitate better economics, right? They've got these new engines, and the bigger, better engines are more fuel efficient, which helps to cut back on cost. And of course, we like cut costing measures, right? We like to have lower air flight tickets. So of course we're going to want this, and of course they want this. But how do you get those new advances and new features on an old plane? And their solution was a flight control system that's essentially fly by wire and managed by software. So that's crept more and more into our system. And now the FAA handing over the reins, if you will, to check and verify that everything is okay on these flight systems over to some sort of representative that now is working for Boeing. Yeah, I mean that probably would ring a lot of alarm bells, but at the same time, nobody wants there to be any failures. Like, the last thing Boeing wants is this. This is the last thing Boeing wants. They don't want flight disasters. They don't want to have to ground every single 737 MAX that they've got, right? Their best interest is to make sure everybody stays alive. They don't want anything like this to occur. So they're going to hire these experts in order to oversee that their processes and their flight controls and their airframes and everything else that's on there is solid. And before it's ready to fly, it gets checked. They want that, right? And the FAA handing over these details over to these to the manufacturers themselves, that's probably going to get reanalyzed, right? I think the FAA is going to start taking a look at this particular problem, and the fact that it hit so many headlines, and decide, maybe we should take back that control. Maybe we shouldn't allow that to happen anymore. So hey, SAA Consulting, yes, thank you. Thank you for, again, also being a member. I really appreciate it. Let me stop share. All right, you guys can see my ugly mug again. Yeah, you see my green screen, right? All that fancy stuff you guys actually get to see. That's my real green screen. So yeah, nothing real special there. I do have some interesting lighting. Here, I can kind of actually, let me switch cameras here. Oops, not that. I want to switch cameras. Brio. So I know a lot of you guys are probably interested in this. Like, what have I got for? This is my computer system. Yes, there you guys. There's my, wow. It's like looking at a mirror and a mirror and a mirror. Yes, I do have 3 computers. Oh, there's my wife's dresses. I hope you guys enjoy that. There's my clarinet up there. I don't know if you guys can see. Let me see if I position this a little bit. So there's right there is my clarinet, which is going unused, basically. My wife's dresses over here. Yes. But yeah, so here's my computer. I know some of you guys are kind of probably a little curious about this. I do have 3 screens wide. Yes, 3 screens. There's the other camera, right? That's the camera that I typically show you guys, which goes back to the green screen back there. And some of you guys are probably motion sick at this point because I keep moving the camera around. All right. Yes, but that is my 4K camera. Hi, guys. That's my 4K camera that I sometimes use and reposition when I was trying to do the earlier versions of the Coffee with Steve. You guys saw that I was, sitting in front of the table and stuff, and I was actually using this 4K camera on an arm to kind of point at that. So right now, so I have the so SAA Consulting Steve says, what cameras are you using? Both of these are Logitechs. I have the Logitech HD10 80p. It's like a C90, I think is what the serial number is on, or the what do you call it? Oh, come on. I'm losing my mind here. But essentially it's the version of camera is C90. And then I also have this 4K Logitech Brio, which is really, really nice, kind of an expensive camera. But I was really hoping really hoping to get, yeah, model. Thank you. Yes, model. It is the model. I was trying to get something a little bit more uh, high def and seeing if the 4K was going to be better than the 1080p. Honestly, I haven't really noticed any difference between the two, except for maybe a little bit in what the lighting is. The 4K tends to be a little bit better at catching the lighting than my just regular C90 model. Esbrio says, thank you for your videos. Well, thank you for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you decided to come join us. So it doesn't look like anybody wants to actually come and talk to me. I'm sad. I'm sad. I got the link up in the chat. I got the link in the description of the video. I got the link posted up on the community wall. I get the link posted on Facebook. Well, I guess nobody wants to talk to me. They just want to hear me talk, I guess. I don't know. That's interesting to me. Okay, so that was a lot about the 737 MAX. Oh, do I recommend a video editing course? Do I recommend a video editing course for Windows? Course or software? Like a video editing software? Or do you mean like go to Udemy and see how to do video editing? I'm not really sure. For software, so typically my recordings go through OBS Studio, just so you guys know. Use OBS Studio. I'm going to try maybe the Streamlabs, which is really just a version of OBS Studio. Oh, software and course. I don't know of a video editing course because I never took one. I just kind of winged it until I figured it out. I probably should because like the quality of my videos is probably like, Steve, what are you doing? I've just kind of had to do some trial and error, just try to work my way through it, just like I learn how to do software. Just trial and error until I get it right. Try different things. Hopefully it's successful. You know what? I should probably ask you guys. This is kind of my opportunity to maybe ask you. So I've been doing these Coffee with Steves for about, I don't know, 3 weeks now, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And I've seen an interesting thing happen. I've seen subscribers during the live broadcast go up. And then the video themselves, I see subscribers go down. It's interesting. And then overall, the channel has lost a lot of subscribers. It's almost half of what it was a year ago. And I'm not really sure. I've been told that the reason, that YouTube is doing some purging of accounts and there's bots and stuff to worry about, but I just don't understand how that would be half of my subscribers or half of the typical normal subscriber count. So I'm not really sure what's going on. I don't know. And also what's kind of concerning is the fact that it's been all the newer videos. So I'm thinking about the idea of moving these Coffee with Steves to a completely separate channel. That way I can keep this channel just about, keep programming made easy about the tutorials, right? I think, and that might have been probably the best solution, best idea. And then move this over to an actual channel. I've already got one kind of set up in case. It's called Coffee with Steve, so that it's more like this, and then we can have discussions, and then maybe I have a little bit more of an open platform there. I can discuss anything that I want to. It doesn't have to be programmer related, which you guys know I've got a lot of opinions on a lot of other things. I love to talk about other things. I'd love to talk about Cobra Kai. It's one of the best shows out there right now, and I can't say TV show because it's not a TV show. It's a YouTube show, but I think it's by far one of the best shows that's out there. And I'd love to talk more about that. Like, I'd love to make videos on that, but I can't. I'd love to talk about Avengers. I haven't gone and seen it yet, but I'd love to talk about it once I do. I'd love to talk about, a whole bunch of stuff besides just technology and software development. So I'm kind of thinking about making a second channel and moving it over there. And then that way, this channel stays just about the tutorials. Uh, and that way, I think what it is a lot of people are subscribing to the channel thinking that they're going to get tutorial videos. And the next thing they know, they see day after day after day of these things. And they're like, well, this isn't the channel that I signed up for. I signed up for the tutorials. So I think that might be why it's happening. But I do think that there is a lot of interest in me continuing to do these kind of daily broadcasts. It is quite easy for me to do these. I just have to come up with a topic, and it takes me about half hour, maybe to an hour to come up with the bullet points and talking points of what I want to say about it. And then I can open up these Q&A sessions for you guys and just give you guys the opportunity to come and talk to me, even though I've been the one talking. SA Consulting says, sorry, I am having some issues with microphone on Dell tablet working through the dock and Google Hangouts. The camera is at a wonky angle. So, okay. That's fine. That's fine. If you got problems, you got problems with it. That's cool. I understand. I got technical issues all the time. You guys experience them on the channel. I'm in the middle of a live broadcast. And I'm like, oh, where's this? Where I got to go click over there. Okay. These aren't really designed to be, these are video. They kind of come out as videos at the end because I save them and record them. But I'm almost thinking of not doing that. I'm almost thinking of not just like make them live broadcasts. Don't save them. Don't record them. Maybe. I don't know. Sometimes people like to go back and rewatch them. Again, that's why I'm thinking of just moving it over to another channel. That way people can watch it. And if they want to see past streams, they can. S. Brio gives me the thumbs up. So, oh yeah, I didn't quite answer your question today. I didn't go all the way through. So, I use OBS Studio for the recordings. That way, or I should say for the live streams. I do the OBS Studio for the live streams. I use Camtasia for recording the topic tutorials because Camtasia has both the recorder and the editor built in. So I could just go in there and just edit it. I used to use Vegas Pro for my editing. Vegas, back when it was Sony. They moved over, some other company bought them, or no. What did they got bought out or something like that. They changed versions. It's now under some other name. And I would love to use it again, but now that I have Camtasia, I haven't really had any reason to go back to that. Although it's much more like Vegas Studio is a much better editing software. It's like a full professional software editing. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a much more professional editing software. That's what I meant to say. Keep mixing up my words. All right. A name that there is absolutely no way I can pronounce. I apologize, but I don't know. I don't even know what language that is. I'm sorry. It says, I believe that the MS Access is a really powerful tool, but it has many problems. For example, scrolling issues with large text boxes and records. The tabs are not working correctly on Windows 10 and stuff like that. I'm sorry for my bad English. Can you please give your advice? By the way, your videos are perfect. You're a good teacher. Well, thank you. Name, I'm afraid I cannot pronounce, but that is a cute looking baby that you got for a picture. If you're experiencing problems like that, I haven't heard of any sort of widespread problems with MS Access. But if you are experiencing it and you're really determined, then what I would suggest that you do is move on to some other platform that is, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's tough to make the move from Access to something else. The platform is very unique, right? The ability to build software applications from top to bottom in a rapid application development way, using Access with VBA, which is kind of its own animal of a language. There's not much crossover there. There's not much of a direction for me to tell you to go that's going to be an easy transition, but you do need to transition. I think that it's really one of those critical things. If you're going to make a journey of development, if you're going to make a journey out of this, or you want to start building software applications professionally, Access is a great starter tool to kind of give you the top to bottom understanding, database layer, a business rules layer, and user interface layer. Like, how do all those things jive together? How can I build systems, and how can I diagnose and troubleshoot the issues? And really kind of, you start to learn how to program with VBA, right? It's a really great way to kind of get started into this thing, but then trying to transition out of it into some other language, it's a whole other world. And that's kind of one of the downfalls of doing all this access work, is that I'm trying to help you guys go become professional developers, or at least work within your. I shouldn't say I'm really trying to make you guys professional developers. That's not really what I'm trying to do. The channel is really more for helping you guys educate yourself to whatever the needs are that you have. If you guys decide to become professional developers, great. If you can use my videos as a tool to help you advance your career, fantastic. But if you're looking for like a pathway of becoming a professional software developer, going into Access and then trying to transition to something else is going to be a difficult climb. But I also think that it is worthwhile. I think that it is a worthwhile option to go through Access, because it is a simple way of understanding top to bottom how to build an app. It's like you discover all the challenges of it. You discover, how do I build a user interface that users actually like? How do I build my business rules to talk to the database in just the manner I need? How do I store the data? How do I normalize the data? How do I write queries? How do I write reports? Like, all of these things that you would do in any other software development environment, you have those same challenges as an Access developer. You run into those same challenges. The problem is, the tools that do everything in Access are not akin to anything else, right? The VBA code, the closest you're going to find is VB.net, and they're worlds apart. Okay. Really, it's like VB6. VBA is really just VB6 with a couple of special tools. So trying to transition to like VB.net, you might understand parts of the language, but there's just concepts that are in there that are mind blowing. And then trying to go, and VB.net isn't even really a thing. Like, I think 4% of the people, of developers, even use it or know of it. So yeah, there's not really much of a use of VB.net. That means you got to go learn a language like Java or C#, PHP maybe, Python, right? JavaScript. Like, you got to go learn those languages if you're going to have a career in this industry. So in a way, it's helpful to go and learn Access, because you kind of get this full stack understanding, like from top to bottom, how does an application need to be built? But the problem is, you've got a special designer in there specifically designed to work with databases. That's not a thing anywhere else. I mean, there's probably a couple of niche products that do that too, like Fox Pro used to, but there aren't really any development like stable development environments that do that. You can't just go build a front end application based upon database tables. It just isn't a thing. Then there's the whole VBA aspect of it, right? VBA is like this niche language that you guys may have seen in the Stack Overflow results, is the most dreaded language. Like, seriously, it's the most dreaded language on the Stack Overflow survey. So try to go from VBA to some other language is like a whole other curve to it too. And then you got to figure out, how do you even build the user interface? Because now you're used to Access kind of handling some of those challenges for you. You got a nice little designer to go build these things. How do you translate over to something else? And when you're talking about WPF forms or UWP forms or HTML and CSS, and like, everything is a completely different world from what you learned in Access, because Access was a simple little designer, drag and drop what you need, do some VBA binding to events and stuff like that, and tell it which function you want to run. There's some similarities, but as far as how to link the front end to the back end, or the front end to the business rules, there's some similarities there. But the ease of which to build the user interface and design it according to record sets and according to data, that's not a thing in any other environment that I've worked in. Like, it's just simply not a thing. You have to do much more manual writing. You have to create your own things and then say, this is where I'm getting it from. And if you're working with C sharp, for example, you have to understand that now you're working with like entity framework, and which is a C sharp. Basically, it's what we call an ORM, right? Or an object relational mapper. It takes this stuff that's over in the database and maps it to objects in memory on your code base, right? Into C sharp, which makes it easier to work with the objects in the database as if they were objects in your application. And so that's a good transition, right? But that's an extra layer of something you have to learn. You have to understand link expressions, right? Or link to SQL or whatever it is that you need to use in order to do that. Like you could do the link. What do they call it? The link statements, where you do the from this table select this table. It's kind of like a reverse SQL language. I typically just use like the Lambda expression functions. I love those. They're way easier for me to work with. Just simply because I understand the Lambda expression much better. I love the arrow syntax for functions. Phil Drew says, "Hey, Steve, have you made?" Let me start that over again. Phil Drew says, "Steve, have you ever made a tutorial, or could you please do so, on printing intelligent mail barcodes on U.S. postal mail from within Microsoft Office or using a programming language? Thanks." Intelligent mail barcodes. Are those different than regular barcodes? I don't think that they are. The process should be the same. I'm not really sure. Is there a difference between intelligent mail barcodes and just regular barcodes? Because I did do a video on adding barcodes, and all it really is a font. You just have to go get the font, download it, and then say, I want the barcode to have these characters, and the barcode actually then reads out those characters. So I'm not really sure if there's any difference with intelligent mail barcodes, because it should be about the same. You just have to go get the font, and then you create a little text window or a little text area, right? And you change the font of that text area to the barcode font, and then you just use your keyboard to type in what you want it to read out. Or you can pull that data from out of the database if you want, right? You can just say bind. You could bind that text area or text box to some record in the database. And even though the values in the table will be in typical characters, when they print out on the report or on the form, because you said use that particular font for barcode, it will automatically translate it to barcode. So it's not really that hard to do. I just don't know if there's a difference between intelligent mail barcodes and regular barcodes. I don't know that there's a difference. The person again who has the name up there, and I like, there's no way I could pronounce that. It's not even in like letters that I'm used to looking at. I'm sorry. It looks like a RIWPYOC. I think it's the Greek alphabet, so that's why. Yeah, I am from Greece. Yep, there it is. Okay. I use FEMS Access BE SQL Server. So front end is Microsoft Access, back end SQL Server. That's good. So that's one of the big transitions that you have to do. You have to make the transition of SQL Server for your back end data, because then it allows you to then access that data from any other type of platform. If you tried to use Access as your full-time database, George Vamvolicus. Well, George, thank you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for telling me how your name is pronounced. And I still do a terrible job of it because I'm just that way. As everybody who watches my channel knows by now, I am horrible with names. But yeah, so your front end is Microsoft Access. That's good. That means you can, because you move the data to the SQL Server, that means that you can change the front end, right? You don't have to rely upon Microsoft Access to control the data on that SQL Server anymore. You can build a front end application to go talk to that data. You can build a PHP application. You can go build a Python application. You can go build a Ruby on Rails application. You could, whatever it is that you decide to move into, Because all your data is still on that database, you can design something else to go talk to that database. And not only that, you can do both of them simultaneously. You could still keep the MS Access front end application up and running. So you can keep a business running off of that, right? While at the same time, you are building a new interface that's still working with the same data. So the transition for the business is very seamless, right? You're currently in this system, you're going to move over to this system once it's ready. And the data is still the same, right? Across both of those front ends. So anyway, guys, I think I'm going to go ahead and have to cut it here. I do appreciate everybody who joined me today. I'm kind of disappointed that again, no one has decided to come and talk to me personally. I promise I don't bite, and I don't think I smell or anything. All right, I put on my deodorant. Uh, I'm not sure why people don't want to come on and talk. I know SA Consulting, Steve. I know you said you were trying to do that and you just couldn't. Oh, there he is. The man, the myth, the legend. Steve, I can hear you. I can. Well, thank you. You were from, Australia, correct? Oh, okay, okay. You're okay, you're from Arkansas. That's right. Henry, HRU Bricks, he's from Australia, that's right. I always get you 2 confused, I don't know why. So what have you been building? Oh, okay. Alright, that's good. Yeah, trying to um, SharePoint is a beast, isn't it? Yeah. Bump up your volume a little bit here. So yeah, one of the things about SharePoint is like there is some integration still with Access in so far as so before you used to be able to take Access and actually build like a web forms version. I think in 2013 they had it, and then in 2016 they dropped it. You could build like these web forms and deploy it to SharePoint. They dropped that support. They don't do that anymore. But what they still do have are the lists. So if you're storing data onto the lists in SharePoint, you can use those as linked tables. Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, like the web development stuff, when I was first getting into it as a kid, I wasn't afraid of it at all. Like it was like, oh yeah, I can build websites, I can do JavaScript, I can do all this stuff. I wasn't really afraid of it, and I was just a teenager at the time, and now I kind of really took some time off away from web development, and it totally blew up into a whole other world. And then I came back to it and I realized, wow, like React and Angular and Vue and Ember, like all these different JavaScript frameworks. JavaScript is now something entirely, a totally different animal than it used to be. HTML, and now they have CSS. There wasn't any such thing as CSS back in my day. It was just straight HTML. And then whatever like little plugins that you could get for your browser to work with it. And of course, there were browser wars going on, so everybody had all sorts of different plugins. Websites wouldn't work on Internet Explorer and Netscape, and like there was just this whole debacle going on for the web. So it wasn't really going anywhere. There were a couple of popular websites that popped up here and there, like but most of them were search engine stuff, right? Like Yahoo, Alta Vista, whatnot. And then coming back to it, like afterwards, and after it evolved into this thing, really became it was very like I became fearful in a way, right? I was like, wow, I don't know that I'm going to be able to really get into this. And it is a totally different animal. It's easy to be afraid to get into it, but then once you start to get into it and you start to understand some of the underlying concepts behind it, it's really not as scary a beast as it initially seems. And those frameworks are really there to help. It's just that you have to learn the basics of JavaScript first before you can then go into those things. But I'm really glad that I did go through that process and learn all of those things because now I'm in a situation where I can help people go and do these front end applications and plug into some of those databases that they might not have been able to figure out how to get into and build an actual web interface that Access and Microsoft were trying to figure out how to do and actually kind of get them to here's an actual web application that can talk to a database and SharePoint has these lists things, but man, SharePoint's always been just kind of one of those floundering fish of a technology for me. Yeah, I'm just kicking you up a little bit so you can hear me. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you joining me, and I appreciate you coming on. I it's too bad you were having some difficulties there, and it does look like your camera's a little dark. I don't think it's actually nighttime in Arkansas right now. But maybe you just don't have the lighting I do. I'm not sure. Oh, you still have me running in the background? You still watching the YouTube side? Yeah, there you go. I think you must still have the YouTube player going. Okay, that's alright, that's alright. Yeah, it looks like you have an HD camera. Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, the little, C90 that I've got, it's 1080p, good quality. It's the one that, they can see me on right here, and it was really cheap. It was only like 40 bucks. It was not that bad at all. And it's got, it clamps onto the monitor, as you guys saw. But it also has a screw on the bottom of it so that you can mount it if you want to. You can mount it to like, the little flexible camera thing that I've got here. It's got, a nice little screw on the bottom here that you can mount a camera to. The 4K one was like I had some lighting problems with it too. Like, yeah, I had some lighting problems with it, but I was able to figure it out just through just fiddling around with the controls of it. And so you might want to do that. Maybe you just need to find the software that manages the camera and, tries to work on the gamma or the brightness and that sort of thing, the contrast. Well, we're glad you did. Okay, here we go. So we got some questions here. I've been listening to your mornings a few days ago on my way to work. Great stuff. For my question, I'm tasked with creating Excel VBA form. He's got an image. Every morning, or every more advanced VBA person tells me to not do my code within forms code behind, but with interfaces, implements, etc. Can't get one good tutorial on to figure out how to do that. Ooh, any chances you have experience with this? And if yes, possibly do a 30-minute live tutorial. Ooh, that's a lot to ask there, San. But yes, I do have a lot of experience with interfaces. I love interfaces, and everybody who's telling you to do that is absolutely correct. But you're right, there's not very much that's out there because most VBA developers don't do anything with interfaces or implements or anything like that because we don't typically work with abstractions or classes or any of those kind of nonsense constructions. No, we typically do more, just straight procedural code, right? We just take this thing and go line by line by line, which is fine in a 32-bit environment, fine in a non-object oriented programming environment. And VBA is not really object oriented. It is in some aspects, but it's not in others. So it's not really a true object oriented language in the traditional sense. So, yes, you should do that whenever possible, but trying to figure out how to do it in VBA is really a beast. I do have one video on it though. Um, I don't remember exactly where it is, and maybe Steve can speak to that. Maybe he knows. Maybe he knows where it's at. Uh, but there is a video that I do have on interfaces, and I think it was also like a rubber duck VBA one back when I was really into the rubber duck stuff. But there is something. I bet you if you do a search on my channel for interfaces, you might find something about it. Phil Drew says, Steve, we can't hear the person that you're talking to. Yeah, I hope that I turned up his volume. He's having he's trying to work with a setup that he hasn't really tried to do this with, so you'll have to bear with him. SRU Grunk says, I grabbed the data. Oh, yeah, I can show that. I'm using RubberDuck 2, translating to check. Great program. Yes, RubberDuck is a fantastic plugin for VBA and Access. I love it. It's really kind of a way to go. Yeah, Son, that's a great point. I'm probably going to put that on my list of videos to do because I think that you're right. Knowing how to do interfaces it's not really a typical construct that VBA coders dig into. It's kind of more of a higher level, real actual programming and actual object-oriented languages. Like that's a consistent thing in Java, C#, etc. We work with abstractions all the time, but it's not really a thing in VBA. Steve, you got you muted. I'll unmute you. Wait, no, I can't. I can't unmute you. You have to unmute yourself. No, I don't think he's figured out where it should be on the broadcast. It should be on the Google Hangouts broadcast. We'll get better at this, folks. We promise. And again, if you guys want to join again on Fridays, I'm going to be doing these. Or if you want to try to be the guinea pig, just like Steve here, and try to figure out how to get on this Google Hangouts chat. And I'm thinking about trying to find some other software besides Google Hangouts. So maybe I can find a simpler way to go about it. But I do try to do these every Friday where you guys can have a live call-in show. You guys can come and ask me questions directly. So, all right, guys, I am going to have to cut it here because I got to get to work. I don't know about you guys, but I got work to do. So thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful day. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you guys next Monday.